the Devious Dungeons, Foreboding Forests, and the Callous Cats. My name is Phil. Welcome back to the Dark Orb. We've got an actual play happening on Friday. Dungeon Crawl Classics, one of my absolute favorite role-playing games. It's not a game I've ever GM'd, but it's a game that I've played badly a bunch, and it's a lot of fun. So if you're a big fan of OSR games, old school Renaissance games, please do let us know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite old school games are. If they're Dungeons and Dragons, old school essentials, let us know. Even Bori, let me know what you like. If you enjoy this, then please do obviously like the video, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Tell your friends all about us. But for now, let's bring on two of my favorite people, Zac the Hacker and Martyn.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, Zac, you very kindly have agreed to run a game for us on Friday. I
can't wait. I love that game so much.
It's going to be awesome. So not too many spoilers, but if anyone who hasn't already seen the image, we're going to be playing was it the Crypt in Cadaver Canyon? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Which we've been talking about for a long time. I'm really, really excited to be having that on the stream. And Martyn is joining us as one of the players alongside tiny little DCC celebrity by the name of Bruce, and another tiny celebrity in the way of Brendan LaSalle. Hopefully, fingers crossed, all going to plan. And of course, my good self and someone you've seen on the show before, Anoya. And it should be a lot of fun. But we realized, of course, that Martyn's not played DCC before, and he's going to be diving in at the deep end.
Yeah, I shall be playing the part of the ignorant player that knows nothing.
Oh man,
but I am willing to learn. That is why I'm here tonight.
Token enthusiastic newbie.
Yes.
So I thought, well, let's rather than taking half an hour or so at the beginning of the stream, either talking about the system or alternatively, before we even do the stream, spending some time with Martyn, giving him a primer on what to expect. Might not be a bad shout to actually just talk about it live, right? And let's get cracking about what DCC is and why we love it so much. So to that end, Mr. Martyn, what are your understandings of Dungeon Crawl Classics? What do you associate with the brand?
Okay. I will preface this by saying that up until very recently, I hadn't even really heard of it in terms of like, I had DCC. I know that people talk about it, Dungeon Crawl Classics, but I hadn't really had any conversations with anyone that had actually played it. Yeah. So I wrote down, I have 4 things that I think I know about it, and then you two can tell me whether they're right or wrong.
No pressure, Martyn, but there is right answers,
Yeah, there are right answers.
Pressure. Yeah.
I don't do well under pressure. You'll see this on Friday when you give me the tough choices. I'll crumble. Okay, so number 1, it's an OSR. It's an old school Renaissance revival, old school style game, which may not necessarily be reflected in the rules, so I'm led to believe, but it's the feels. Funnels, which
Zac has just rage quit, I think. Oh no, there he is.
Yeah,
I was getting the module.
Yeah, funnels. I've heard so much about the funnels.
Fun with funnels.
Yes, so that which apparently is you have a bevy of 0 level characters, and then you see who survives. That's the gist I get. That. Okay.
Maybe might be wrong.
Funny dice. Weird dice. Yeah. Okay.
Expensive funny dice.
Yeah.
You can get the wrong funny dice, by the way.
Don't I know?
They might even show up in time for Friday.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. They do have to deliver by Moose in Sweden, so we'll see. Lastly, this one I know is true because I've been jonesing after it for a while. They have a very cool Lankmar box set, and I'm a big fan of Fritz Lieber. And it's one of those things that I've seen on shops' websites. Yeah. I've seen on shops' websites, and I've been like, I really want that, even though I don't have anything else to do with the game. I just want it because I like Fafford and Grey Mouser and Lankmar and Naywon. So maybe now I've bought the book and I'm waiting for it. I might pick that up.
I was walking over. I was walking over to grab one of the modules because you were saying that you weren't sure whether it was reflected in the rules around it being an OSR game. At the first paragraph of every single module, it won't take me long to read this verbatim, but just to give you an idea of what the system's all about is. Remember the good old days when adventures were underground, NPCs were there to be killed, and the finale of every dungeon was a dragon on the 20th level? Those days are back. Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures don't waste your time with long-winded speeches, weird campaign settings, or NPCs that aren't meant to be killed. Each adventure is 100% good, solid dungeon crawl with the monsters you know, the traps you remember, and the secret doors you know are there somewhere. And every single module starts with that, so it's definitely already in the rules. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing. Like we said before the stream, I don't necessarily have those kind of nostalgia goggles because I wasn't really there when it was first kicking off. I wasn't playing the games. But I was
technically.
Yeah, kind of. Very late 70s. I was around. But yeah, I know that feel because I've played like kind of the old like Eye of the Beholder games, and I've played like newer OSR games, so I know what they're going for, and I'm excited by that.
Yeah, so I first encountered DCC Dungeon Crawl Classics actually at UK Games Expo. We were just playing some of the sign-up role-playing games, and on a Sunday afternoon, I think it might have been morning, on a Sunday after everyone had been drinking, but we had pre-signed up to Tower of Black Pearl, which is being run by our very good friend Judge Bruce, and we found out after the fact, because we've remained friends with him, that he was steamingly hungover, but it didn't show because he's such an amazing GM. And we didn't know what to expect. We just picked something because it sounded cool. And Erin fell in love with it, my other half. And the following year at UK Games Expo, I think it was the following year, Goodman Games had a stall, and she ended up buying a book. Right there. And now she runs it, and it's great fun. I've never run it. As I said earlier in the stream, I've always been a player of the game. But it was exactly. But yeah, it's great fun. So it is, as it says, it's a dungeon crawl game. What's interesting is the amount of variety there is in the modules. So it's a game where you could be wielding an axe and a shield and fighting a dragon. You could find yourself suddenly picking up a laser gun or fighting dinosaurs, or it's just
so doing this crazy bull crap.
Hang on, if you're going to do that, I'm going to make you bigger.
Oh, am I? Okay. This crazy stuff, like,
exactly.
What's going on there?
Frozen in Time, which we have here. Actually, I think ours is a smaller format one. But yeah, it's just such a. There's so much variety in the system, but at its heart, from my understandings of it, the primary author, Joe Goodman, basically decided that he wanted to return to what he remembered of role-playing when he was a little bit younger, went back and read all the Appendix N stuff and just said, I could do that. And so he did. So we'll come back to the book in more detail, but this is my copy of the core rulebook. It's best part of 500 pages.
It's a big boy.
Oh, yeah. And this is not precise, but around that much is tables. So, yeah. It's just a great big book of adventure, and that's just rules and a little scenario at the back. But that scenario, Portal Under the Stars, is amazing. So it's funnel. I think it's probably my favorite funnel that I've played so far. A lot of people love Sailors, and Sailors is great. But I really like Portal. You mentioned Funky Dice. What do you know of the Funky Dice?
Well, I bought a set. I bought the beaked unicorn ones, because they seemed the most readable on the pictures. And I know that they kind of fill in the gaps of your normal polyhedrals. So there's like D5s and D3s, D5s, D7s. I think it seemed to kind of fill in all the gaps, or a lot of them anyway. And it went up to D30. Yeah.
So D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D10, percentile D10, D12, D14, 16, 20, 24, and 30. Very quickly, I'm going to say hello to everyone who's talking in the comments. So we're not ignoring you. To Yoels, Andy, Jamie. Jamie's asked you directly, Zac, whether or not DCC is that game that you played all those months ago.
It was. It was.
And, hello to Erin.
For scale of that D30 here, it's very big. Okay,
it's like we're
golf ball size. Avoid the obvious statements here.
I suppose the sensible way to do it would be to compare it to a D20, like a regular D20, right?
What was the what I'm interested in is what was the mouth feel on that then when you
I could really taste the apricot. I was eating a lot of dried apricots last time I rolled that, so yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
Okay, but the funky dice have to be my favorite part of the system, because there's funky dice. You can tell that all the way through. Like, we want to roll these things.
Yeah. So, you know from the point of view of someone that hasn't used them, how often do you use them, and what are they for? Are they really used that often, or?
So let's be real with the funky dice. They kind of get used in a similar sort of fashion, or at least a similar sort of pacing as in D&D. You use like advantage, disadvantage, stuff like that, right? Like because
edition advantage.
Because most often when you're using the funky dice, it's because the judge has moved you up or down the dice chain, and that's how you do advantage and disadvantage. Or it's that quick GM decision of, okay, you've said something crazy, so I'm just going to make it happen, and we're going to do this. You know how in 5e that's kind of how disadvantage and advantage gets used most often. It's like, oh, you've said you're going to do something crazy, so okay, have disadvantage, and then you can try it.
So it's kind of like the Cortex system as well, where you would upgrade the dice. You would kind of go from a D6 to a D8, or down from D6 to a D4, or all the way up to a D12.
Absolutely. Now, if you're ganging up as well, you might get advantage, or if for some reason your weapon's going to do additional damage or less damage, one way to do that would be to go up or down the dice chain. Other than that, it's a D20 game, really, in the sense of like it's very similar in some regards to the mechanics of 5th edition in some ways.
Now, that's not to say there aren't other reasons to use those die. There are certainly points in modules and reasons to use them outside of just moving yourself up and down the die chain. Some weapons use them, like some weapons might give you a D7 or something like that. Quite a few weapons give you D3s. Obviously, if you're running the game, you're going to get a lot more opportunity to use the different die as well, because you're not just running one character; you're running like all the monsters. But then you don't always run one character, right? I think that's like one of the things we're going to talk about, Phil.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
So you said that when you're running the game, you get a chance. So is this a game then where the DM does roll? Because there's a lot of games nowadays where you hand everything off to the players. So in this, the DM does roll for things that the monsters do or what have you.
Yeah, so the GM does roll, but also it's actually encouraged quite a bit in the core rule book. They say don't use a screen, like just roll in front of your players, because a lot of the core sort of I don't know, the feel, the culture of the game is trying to get back to rolling dice and then trying to tell a story around it. Rather than having like dice be like you have the dice drive your narrative rather than support your narrative, like in some other role playing games that you play these days. It's sort of like it's when you roll characters in this, they for the stats and stuff, they say roll 3d6 just straight down the line, and that's what you get.
Okay.
Sort of
and
thing.
Is that line the same as D&D? Is that the same stat line, or is it like strength, dex, constitution? Is it the same stat line as D&D?
Very similar. So I've got a character sheet here. I'll show it off in a bit. But it's strength, agility, stamina, personality, luck, and intelligence. Luck normally is at the bottom, but for some reason on this sheet it's not. So luck is something that we can talk about in a bit. But effectively, functionally, it's very similar. And you, when you're rolling your characters to begin with, presuming that's how you do it, you just roll them up, you add those, put those numbers, assign them in order, and then they will give you a modifier. So, for example, here, this character in front of me has got a strength of 7, and I get a -1 modifier. So what that means is when I roll a d20, presuming that's the die that the judge or GM has told me to roll, then I'll take a 1 off that.
Okay.
So in that regard, it's very similar to, for example, 5th edition. And those modifiers obviously are assigned based on the value of your statistic, your stat. Let's see here. Erin says, I don't just have the DCC dice chain. I've got the odd numbers dice that fill the gaps in the dice chain, D19, D13, etc., for no real reason other than just because it's true. And she intentionally got the ones that are exactly the same color as well. So whenever she takes those dice out to play, she has to try and remember which ones are wrong.
But I think that the whole like rolling in front and all that kind of stuff in front of a GM screen and all that kind of stuff, and trying to rely on the dice as well, is all part of that culture of the game. And it even goes down to the fact that in DCC they refer to GMs or DMs or however you want to call them, they refer to them as judges. And I really like that. I like that change. And the reason being is that DCC, because you're rolling everything, there's no fudging die rolls. You know what I mean? Like if your players are going to get smacked by 5 critical hits in a row, you're not going to be like, oh, well, like, I guess that didn't happen, because everyone just saw the die. It happens. And so by changing the name from like game master to judge, it neutralizes that effect of the fact that you're gonna kill a lot of players, players' characters, and you're like, hey man, I'm just adjudicating the rules, right? Like I'm not trying to kill you.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for if you've got to the point in a role-playing game, almost any role-playing game, and you're asking people to roll the dice, then once you've asked them to roll the dice, respect that roll and go with the story wherever it takes you. You know, it's like exactly. if you don't want a dice roll to go a certain way, don't call for it.
Yeah,
you know, it's like if you really don't want the party to fail at something, you know, because it's going to make everything suck, then just don't ask for it. Just ask what they do instead. You know, I mean, I much prefer just playing how the dice fall. That's the way I like my games. So yeah, that sounds good.
It's not even just about there's obviously that element of it, but it's also the fact that like things in this game will just kill you, just straight out. It's like you touch the thing, no roll, you're dead. And there's something about that I think if you embrace it, can be a lot more fun than some of the, like, you can play characters for 5 years in a row and you won't have as much fun as the 45 minutes that you play as, you know, some half-brained farmer who's gone into this dungeon that's full of like outer-worldly beings and just gets decimated from touching a gem. You know, like that's hilarious. You know, you can't get over that.
Yeah, it's so good. So got a couple of questions, comments. Jamie asks, hang on, let's go back up and find it. What are your thoughts on using a dice rolling app in place of dice that you don't have? I mean, I would prefer to get the dice, but I'm in a very lucky position that I can do that. I can afford to do that somehow, despite the ridiculous outlays of this channel. But the reality is, don't let something like that stop you from playing the game. There are ways around it. So I believe in the DCC core rulebook, it tells you how to kind of mitigate using standard dice if you really need to. Using a dice rolling app is fine. I mean, if you want to get technical, random dice generators are not that random, but you have to roll them many, many, many times in order to prove that out. So I don't have a problem with it. Purple Sorcerer has a virtual dice roller, and yeah, go on.
Sorry, my mind has changed on the topic since the craziness of 2020. I mean, I was very much in favor of, even when I was playing online, I was rolling real dice because just the feeling of like rolling real dice, it's just fun, throwing them across the table. Sometimes they fall off the table. It's crazy. But what I was associating with that feeling was being around a table with real people, throwing dice, and everyone watching it sort of skitter across the table and land on a result that we could all sort of either rejoice or commiserate in. And so when I found that when we were all forced to do online stuff, I was still rolling real dice, I started to realize I actually lost that a little bit when I was online.
Yeah.
Because not everyone could see my dice. So I'd be like, yes, I rolled a 20. And there wasn't that same feeling of like everyone around the table going, oh, that's amazing. But when I started rolling in, Roll20 or Owlbear or something like that, and everyone could see the dice, then it was like you got that back. So I actually think I've changed my mind. I think the rolling online is actually, as long as you're online, is better.
Yeah. I completely agree. We've tried with other games, other systems, to use virtual tabletop tools quite a lot over lockdown, and for the most part, I've decided I really don't enjoy it. But there are some times, like for example, when we were playing Savage Worlds, where actually rolling that virtual die and then suddenly seeing it explode in Fantasy Grounds, other VTTs are available. That one moment was just magic that you can't reproduce that by just rolling a die and no one seeing it but you, and then just saying, oh, I've got another one. Oh, I've got another one. The interesting thing about playing back in person again, which we've done a couple of times now since lockdown in the UK has eased, is of course your social distancing still a little bit. Not maybe even if you're completely trusting the people you're with and you've all done your lateral flow tests, you're still kind of distancing a bit, and you're still not really looking to see what they got. There's still a little bit of a subconscious discomfort there. So even
what about DCC there, right?
Huh?
What about DCC there, right?
Yeah, there is that. Right. Yes. Let's get back to what we're talking about. So the book is huge.
Mm-hmm.
The book is absolutely huge. The book has everything that you might want to know about the game. I
have the annual, the 2020, and they actually have rules for a mustache duel. Yeah, that one. Yeah, in the back of it, it's got rules for a mustache duel, like a magical mustache duel. Fantastic. Can't get past that.
You've just broken Martyn, I think.
Is that happening on Friday? No, I want it to.
Not on camera, but after the
show. Unfortunately, not in the one that I'm running. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 500 pages long. I've ordered it. It could arrive before Friday. Which sections do I need to get in my head for Friday?
None of them. None of them. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the thing is I mean, well, first of all, because you'll be running, like I'll be running it, so I'll just tell you the bits you don't know. But
okay.
also, even though it's 500 pages long and stuff, as Phil showed earlier, yeah, that's pretty cool. That quite a lot of it is taken up with tables, which I love. Okay. I love the tables because the tables, the majority of the tables are spells. So in DCC, I'm not going to try and, I'm not 5e bashing here, right? But in 5e, you're a level 1 wizard and you've got 2 spell slots, and once you use them, you're just a dude in a dress in the middle of a dungeon, Whereas with DCC, you can cast spells as many times as you like, over and over and over again. But if you don't roll well, shit can go bad for you.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Scorching Ray. Let's if I can zoom in a bit. Hopefully you guys can see that. So it's a level 2 spell. You roll your d20, and this is the bit that matters.
So most spells, anything 12 or less, you get a failure and loss spell. As it goes further towards 1, worse stuff can happen. You can see there that when you roll a 1, you get all sorts of corruption, all that kind of stuff. So the thing about the way that the magic works in the DCC universe is, in many other systems, magic is something that, you know, scholars pore over for years and all that kind of stuff, and they perfect their magic and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of do that in DCC too, but learning magic in DCC is kind of a lot more like science in real life, in a sense that you move forward with a hypothesis and you see what happens, and it's not always good, you know. And so when you get a spell in DCC, you roll on a mercurial magic table. It's a D100, and all sorts of crazy, weird, and wonderful stuff can happen. And this is essentially how the spell manifests in yourself. So, for example, one of the results is every time you cast this spell, 7 copies of yourself appear from different dimensions, and so you for the next minute there are 7 copies of yourself in the room, you know. So this is a fairly common sort of like, you know, shadow cast or whatever, you know, like sort of thing.
Here's some mercurial magic.
Yeah, but then at the end of that minute, those 7 copies will go away, and there is a 5% chance, I think it is.
Yeah.
No, there you go. 1% chance that you yourself are sucked into a different dimension and a copy is left behind. Okay. And this happens every time you cast this spell once you've rolled it off the first time. So you get these amazing, possibilities for some crazy dice stories to come out of this sort of thing. I had a friend who rolled, and a mecha brain from the future taught him the spell, and at some point there was a percentage chance the mecha brain would come back and try and retrieve its knowledge. And so that's just, it's a ticking time bomb in the campaign waiting for it to explode. It's fantastic.
Aaron has just said this, and yeah, I agree. Love a mercurial magic effect where someone you know dies every time you cast a spell.
Just like the party dropping.
Yeah.
So is magic quite kind of pervasive in the system there? Like, does everyone play a magic casting class, or do you even have classes? I don't even know that.
Good question. That's a really good question. So,
or is there, like, you know, the standard fighter, thief, magic user kind of?
Yeah. So going back very quickly to what we were saying about magic. So when you roll your d20 and that's modified by various things, you can lose it, you can fail. But what's really interesting is when you manage to get a much higher dice roll. So this is when it starts getting quite
34
intense.
plus.
If you manage to get 34, which is doable by various means that we can go into in a bit, you summon a jet of magma from the Earth's core to a range of 1,000 feet. You can direct this.
So that could kind of backfire, couldn't it? Really,
yeah.
Like a low roll backfires, but a high roll can backfire too.
It totally almost always does.
It's totally possible to end up rolling way higher than you wanted to. And that's what happens. And it's an experiment, and it can go horribly wrong. You raised a really good question about classes and that sort of thing. So the short answer is, think back to the old Dungeons and Dragons when you had elves and dwarves and warriors and clerics and wizards.
As classes. So an elf class is like a fighter magic user. A dwarf is like a fighter who can do extra stuff, like dwarfy stuff.
Yeah. So what happens is during character creation, you roll your occupation. and your occupation will also define or can define your race. So it could say you're an elven farmer or a dwarven blacksmith or that sort of thing. And if it says elf or dwarf or halfling, that's what you are. Otherwise, you're a human.
Okay.
And then if you're a human, then when you progress through the funnel to level 1, you can then choose what class you want to be. So it's really cool. And I'm a big fan of random rolling. Go on.
There's 4 classes that are human, and then there's 4 more classes which are, look, I'm not going to lie, they're essentially carbon copies of the human classes with variations that are race based. So like a halfling is basically just like a thief with some extra cool stuff. An elf is basically a wizard with some extra cool stuff that differentiates them a little bit. So yeah, the race based classes are kind of their flavor, you know.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. So is it always random rolling to create characters? Do you all, or like, is there a method for like, okay, we're going to do DCC and you can make your character, or is it always just like, nah, we're going to start with completely random funnel? That like that's how it always goes, or like is it kind of in between?
So maybe now's a good time to talk about the funnels, right? Like, so because it's not necessarily a staple of many other role playing games. So so essentially, right, the way that you make a character in 5e, as I'm sure I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs here, right? But you roll up your character, you're level 1, and what I describe, level 1s in D&D 5e to new players are essentially you are like, in America, the high school quarterback of your town. You know what I mean? Like everyone in your town knows your name because you've just got that X factor, right? That's something special about you, and that allows you to then go on larger adventures and you go off and you become a hero, right? Like from level 1 up to however high you want to go, right? In DCC, you start with a funnel which is a level 0, and you are just a dude. You're a chicken. Yeah, well, yeah. You're a. I use dude in the gender neutral term, right? Like, yeah. So it's you're just a like a person, a farmer, a chicken farmer, a turnip farmer, a
gong farmer.
Tax officer, gong farmer. There's like a tax officer and all this kind of stuff, right? And so with the funnels, the level 0s are completely randomly rolled, completely with health, the whole lot. So you can get one HP characters as level 0s. And so because of that, you start with 4 of them. So each player has 4 characters that they start with. Okay. You go ditch digger and butcher and all this kind of stuff. So these people, they're going into dungeons with like otherworldly creatures with pitchforks, right? So you know how this is going to go, yeah. And so the whole thing is, the reason why it's called a funnel is because you start with 4 characters and you inevitably and hopefully end up with 1, right? And at the end of your funnel, that 1 character you're left with becomes your level 1 character. And rather than having a high school quarterback, you've just got a dude who's seen some shit. You know, like that's like how they became level 1, right? And it doesn't get better from there. You know, like it's just.
So is that what we're doing on Friday, or are we starting with higher level on Friday, or like how
with level 2s?
Level 2s. Okay, yeah. So in that case, it's like there's rules in there to be able to create them at the higher levels. Then that you can, but it's still randomly rolled rather than like I want to play a, elven wizard or whatever.
I mean, you could technically do that. You could technically just roll and choose your occupation, which then means that you've chosen, it's not really, I guess, in the spirit of DCC to do that, but it doesn't mean you can't, because actually it's all about having fun at the table. And it's probably safe to say that actually with some written scenarios, your judge may have intentionally created a selection of pre-gens that kind of distribute the talents and the abilities among the players. So just making sure that you have enough one of each class, for example, so that you can have a fair spread of things to do during the adventure. But they may well just be re-rolling it randomly until they get a nice selection. And there is a wonderful resource called Purple Sorcerer, which is like a whole load of automated stuff to do that. So you don't have to manually generate it. There are ways to get it done.
Okay.
Aaron's just said as well about the great thing about funnels is it creates the backstory for your character. That's exactly what I love about it as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you sit around after your level 0, you're doing after your session 0, and you sit around the table and your session 1, and you have to listen to everyone else's convoluted backstory. It's like, I didn't come here to listen to you read your book to me. You know what I mean? I want to play the game because the stories where you sit around the table and you go, remember when that goblin like stabbed you in the back and then you like, you know, you gave him a wedgie, like that's a great story, right?
Yeah.
But no one's ever going to write a backstory. I heroically gave this goblin a wedgie one time. You know, like that's never going to happen. Right?
What gets me is, you know, well, you know, I heroically, you know, gave this goblin a wedgie, and then I fought in this great big army, and there was this massive, massive war, and I fought through that, and I came out the other side, and I earned this trusty sword and this shield, and I'm only a level 1.
Yeah,
really?
Exactly.
What did you do?
Yeah.
Just kind of hide at the back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you die against the first creature that you come across.
Yeah. But somehow you managed to get through that war, and you know.
I mean, the bottom line is the story that you share is so much better than the story that you all write yourselves, is what it comes down to, right?
I mean, that's just a truism for role playing games, isn't it? It's, you know, it's.
But that's what the funnel does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Creates those. It sounds like it creates those moments for you.
It creates the hero from the villager.
Yeah.
You know, before
so
that,
what happens if all your characters die on a funnel?
Then you beg. You beg, you borrow, and you steal from the people who somehow managed to get through that funnel with all of their characters intact.
Okay.
Because there's always going to be one.
Okay.
It does. Playing DCC does require a certain like disattachment from the characters you're playing. You know what I mean? Because if you're playing with 4 people around the table, you've got 16 characters on the table. If you lose all of yours and there's still 12 characters around the table, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Give me one of yours, you know, like it's not a big deal.
And is that something
I went through 7 in one funnel.
Sorry?
I went through 7 in one funnel with Bruce.
I thought it was 8.
Might have been 8. I went through 9. I went through more than 6. There we go. I went
oh, man.
Yeah,
so
a lot.
If you're playing because a lot of OSR games, for instance, like just a lot of them basically say if your character dies, just roll up a new one, and like the GM will just like go, oh, you find a prison cell and there's someone in it, and look, it's the new character. Is that something that you do in DCC as well? It's just like, just grab a new sheet, get a new character in there, and like hop straight back in, or is that kind of an accepted part of the rules, or is that kind of up to the judge's fiat on
it really depends on that? Really depends on
the
game.
Like for the one on Friday. For the one on Friday, is that something that you would envision doing, or is that like?
So for the one on Friday, if your character dies, then you have to stare at the screen blankly for the next hour and a half.
Excellent.
Mine will die in the first 5 minutes. You'll see this.
No, yeah, there'll be spare characters, and there's certainly some. Like I said, it depends on the game that you're running, right? And even then, it can be different depending on the players, right? So like before everything happened in 2020, you know, we were running what they call road crew games. So it's kind of like an adventurers league in 5e. It's the road crew is for DCC, and so the public games and. So I was running like a West Marches sort of campaign, so people were dropping in and out and all that kind of stuff. There's one player, Matt, that was there every time, and his character, like beyond the odds, went from funnel to like level 2, naturally, which is kind of that's a big achievement in DCC, right? Like. Right. Yeah, it's like getting to level 2 in DCC naturally that way is really, really good. and then his character died, and there was just this like probably deeper than any other character that like death that I've had has just been like, oh man, like because it's solid like 2 years of just fighting above the odds. Like it wasn't necessarily telling like some deep story or something, but you know, this is the sort of character that's been rolling under doors that have been closing and, you know, grabbing for their hat afterwards, sort of thing. You know, like it's just it's pretty cool in that way. But then equally, you could kill 3 characters in that party in a night.
Yeah, just me.
It is what it is.
Yeah, but that's the thing, and also when you're playing a funnel and you've got your 4 characters and you've got them in front of you, and invariably you'll have one that's got the worst stats ever, a couple that are average, and one that is still pretty poor but better than the other 3. And so you have it in your mind that one that's got the best stats is the one you're going to keep. So you do everything you can to protect them, and invariably that's the one that's going to die. It just happens, you know.
I don't think I've ever run a funnel that hasn't had at least one player root for the plucky underdog with 1 HP to make it all the way through. You know what I mean? Like, come on, you can do it. And invariably they throw them at every trap. They throw them at every because it's like, oh, they got 1 HP. I don't care. They're going to die anyway. And they survive, you know, and then.
But every other thing about them is also equally rubbish. We should probably talk about luck. So luck is something that is really interesting in Dungeon Crawl Classics. So it's one of those stats that you roll, and you'll get like 10 or 12 or whatever, and that gives you a luck modifier. Now, luck is used in a variety of different ways. One thing that you can do is you can take points from your overall luck score to boost your dice roll. So if you rolled an 11 and you needed a 12 to do something, you might consider taking a point from your luck, which permanently, with a couple of caveats, permanently reduces your luck score. The other thing is that there are times when you might need to do something that is a little bit shady. It's not really obvious whether you're going to be able to do it. Maybe you forgot to specify if you had something in your bag before you left for an adventure, and so you go, oh, I wish I had this. The GM may say, well, do a luck roll. At that point, you do a die roll, and you try and roll under your overall luck. So the higher your luck is, the more chance you have of succeeding there. And if you pass that test, then you have the thing. You made the jump. You know, whatever you wanted to do, that's always a challenge. Erin says quite rightly, always burn your luck in one-shots. Problem is that with one exception, I'll let Zac go into one major exception. Luck doesn't really grow back.
Okay. So that's why it's good to burn it in one shots, because you don't really care about it ever having to come back.
Yeah, is it halflings that it'll grow back for?
Like 1 point a night for halflings.
So it's like regenerating health.
Other than that, it works in 5e like inspiration. So like whenever you make a dick or fart joke and the judge likes it, they'll give you a point of luck, sort of thing.
Yeah, true. I get that. And then there's a variant of that in Lankmar, which is fleeting luck, which kind of works the same way, but you earn them like bennies from Worlds, for example.
So it sounds a little bit like quite a lot of games have pools like that are. They kind of give the player a little bit of narrative control just for like a little thing, you know.
It's a limit boost, right? A limit break.
Yeah. You get that. Adventure had that as well, where you could kind of like rest narrative control just briefly to kind of change something very slightly in the world to give yourself a little boost, like you say. So so burn that on Friday.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. See, the thing is that I really like luck as a mechanic, because first of all, it allows players to be able to be like, no, fuck you, I want this to happen. This is like, I really want this to happen, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna spend all my stuff, and then it's gonna happen. And that's really cool, because I think it makes a really good back and forth. Again, it's not about the person at the end of the table having all the control. and being like a rock falls and then you die. It's kind of like, you know, the players can mount their own attack, you know, like, which is pretty cool. But also it's a really interesting decision for players to make, because even in one shots, because there are points at which, you know, you're sailing down, you know, you're sailing in the middle of the ocean and a giant wave comes over. Roll under your luck to see whether you get swept below the waves, right? And you just spent all your luck bargaining with a bloke who you hired the boat with, right?
Yeah, okay. And I've been there.
And now you're stuffed.
Yeah.
You know? Like, so
right. Okay.
Now you need to roll a 1 or you're screwed. The other thing is we spoke earlier on about spells, about doing a spell check to see whether or not you know what your the effect of your spell is. And there are times when you definitely want to be rolling high on spells. And luck's not the only thing that you can burn.
Mm-hmm.
As a wizard, you can also sacrifice your own body and soul.
Okay, so a bit like kind of is it like Dark Sun, where they had they like kind of corrupting mechanics where you kind of drew energy from the land around you, and then like ever after it was kind of well, that's why Dark Sun was like a desert planet, wasn't it? Because they basically, the magic sucked all the life out of it.
It's not entirely the
You remember I was saying earlier that you know, like mages and wizards are more like scientists in this world. Now things can go wrong, sort of thing. They got this great image in the core rulebook.
Hang on.
And this is wizard level 1, and as they begin discovering things and corruption starts happening, it goes across the book, and this is like a high level wizard. So because as you can lose stuff, you can get corruptions, and you have to roll on like the corruption table, and you know, you might grow arms out of your back, or you know, or your hair might fall out, and your eyes turn gold, sort of thing. And there's all that sort of stuff that goes on with the spell casting as well.
Let's
is that a better? Yeah,
better detail.
Yeah.
He says failing to adjust the camera. So yeah, there's a thing called spellburn, and it's where, let's say that you've rolled, you know, a 12 or something, and you need to actually be getting a 20. Well, there's only one place left to take it from after you've exhausted your luck, and that's your soul. That's your body. So you can actually take points from your strength, agility, personality, whatever, you know, tear into yourself and push that all through into your spell. The more you do it, the more impact there is. So not only is there corruption, but there's also the withering of self as you're you know, as you lose your strength and your intelligence and your you know, what you are as a person. And of course you can heal some of that.
Yeah.
But it's a big
but as in real life, never all of it.
Right. Yeah. I think it's what I did wrong at some point in my life.
My favorite spell burn I think I've ever seen was actually from Erin, because we're sitting around playing and stuff, and she, like, I was like, okay, Erin, it's your turn, and she goes, oh, I'm gonna slice into my arm and dig my fingers in there, and I'm gonna really rip out a piece of flesh and everything. I was like, oh my god, Erin, what are you doing? And she goes, oh, it's spellburn. I was just role playing spellburn. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Erin goes, no, spellburn only physical stats. I don't know, I'm not GM. Actually, I don't think I've ever played a magical character.
Okay, so it sounds like the magic users get a lot of kind of cool stuff to be playing with. How about because in a lot of old school games, it's generally the magic users get like the cool stuff, and the other classes it's more you have to kind of like think 10-foot poles and mirrors, and you have to think your way around problems in that sense. Do they get any mechanics that are kind of equivalent to the magic but not? Do they get any kind of like cool stuff that they can do, like fighters, any kind of thing they can rely on in a fight to kind of even the odds against people other than their strength in arms?
So you get mighty deeds, at
Okay.
arms. There you go. Yeah, mighty deeds. Aaron's pointed out. Yeah. So there's two cool things that both warriors and their racial counterparts dwarves do, which is mighty deeds. And when you make an attack with a warrior, actually it might not be the same with a dwarf, but in any case with a warrior, you roll your deed die, and your deed die is your modifier first and foremost on your attack. So when you're making an attack, you roll a D3 is at level 1, and so you can have a modifier anywhere between 1 and 3 whenever you go to attack. And I think this is sort of like simulating like the barbarian nature of your attack, right? Again, you're not like the wizards aren't necessarily these scholars that know everything without trying, and the same sort of thing with the warriors. They're not necessarily these like martial adepts. They're just trying real hard. And so the deed die gets rolled for you take that for both your attack against the AC and also the damage. But also, before you make your attack, you can call a mighty deed in arms. And this is my,
I love it.
I swing on, it's my, I swing on a chandelier, do a backflip, land on the side of the table or the other side of the table to what the side of the table the enemy is on, flip them up into the air and they land on my sword, sort of thing. Like it's the crazy, like impossible things that you can do because you are the warrior, right?
Okay,
and so you claim them before you make your attack roll. And if you get I need to double check the rules.
Depends on your level.
So it's 3 or higher, basically. Then that thing happens as well as your attack.
Yeah, as long as you hit with your attack as well. So
yeah.
So
okay. So you need to make 2 rolls, one for the mighty deed and one for the attack. Is that?
Yeah, just roll both dice together, and as long as you get a 3 or higher, as Zach said, plus you succeed in your actual attack.
Okay. So that's warriors. So then, is there like an equivalent of like a thief? Is there like a thief? Yeah, you said halflings were kind of like that. So there's a standard one as well.
And thieves.
Yeah. Okay. So do they get? Is it just that they get the kind of thiefy skills? They can do all of that stuff, or do they also get an equivalent of the mighty deed as well? The sneaky deed.
I mean, thieves were already cool in basically every system.
Well, yeah, this is the thing.
They get all that. Damage. Yeah, I mean, like
you
get like massive modifiers when you go to backstab someone and things like that. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And halflings have a thing where they can spend luck on behalf of other people. And whenever they spend luck, instead of getting a +1 to their roll, they get a +2. So there's like they do a whole thing where like their whole cool thing is luck.
Okay. And do you have clerics, or is it you do?
Clerics.
Okay. All right.
Clerics work very similarly to wizards, but they have a different selection of spells.
Okay. All right.
The cool thing about clerics compared to other clerics and other systems is that you can heal as many times as you like, but again, you're rolling, bad stuff can happen. And whenever you don't make a roll as a cleric, you are essentially beseeching your god, and your god's like, I ain't got time for you, bro. Stop calling on me, right? And so
there's a war over there. Do you know how many people died?
You're asking for some good berries. Can you just shut up? So there's a disapproval mechanic. So every time you roll below every time you fail a roll as a cleric, your disapproval goes up. Starting at 1, you've got a 1 and it goes up. And anytime you roll below your disapproval, your god has basically had enough of your shit, right? Like,
okay,
like it's like bad stuff is going to happen to you
okay.
now because you've nagged too much. You know?
Okay, so you mentioned good berries then. So is this is this an open license game then? Do they have like they're using like the names of the original spells from D&D then? Because I think a lot of because Goodberry was one that's a D&D spell name.
I think
So
that's just me getting creative.
All right, okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
I wondered what if there was any crossover there, if they actually were like a D&D variant, or like if they used the open license. Oh yeah, I mean Fireball is Fireball, isn't it? No magic. I guess there's no magic missiles in a system like this. Something that hits automatically feels like it's wrong for a game like this.
No, there is magic missile, and it does hit automatically, but you have to roll for it, right? So a different number of things will hit, and
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe hit your friends, maybe
Who
on
knows?
a 34 plus, maybe rip the Earth's core up and hit your friends.
Things get crazy over here, you know.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
I found Magic Mouth. That's not quite the same, is it?
No.
So is that all the classes then? There's like there's a warrior, a thief, a cleric, and a magic user or wizard. What are they called in this?
Wizard.
Wizard.
Yeah, wizard.
So those are the four human classes, and then there's halfling, dwarf, elf, and
I've failed to keep track of that in my brain. There we go.
Warrior, wizard, dwarf, elf, halfling.
Cleric, thief, warrior, wizard, dwarf, elf, halfling. Oh, okay, so there's just 3 like racial ones then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's also I mean, you know, as these things tend to be, there's plenty of like splat books and stuff like that you can pick up. And, but there's things like what's it called now? It's not Dark Trails anymore. It's Weird West.
Weird Frontiers.
Weird Frontiers, which is
shout out to our friend Dave Beatty, in case he's watching.
So good. DCC, but it's the Wild West, and also Cthulhu's here, basically.
Because why not?
It's what it is. It's fantastic. There was, and this is where the die rolls come into these amazing stories. So probably the thing that I'm not going to be able to do it justice because you're not going to be around the table, but probably like the biggest belly laugh I've ever had playing role-playing games was in Weird West / Dark Trails. I was playing a snake oil salesman, but in this world, the snake oil is real, right? Like, so, you know, so you mix these stuff up. So I went to go throw this potion of like explosion or something, and I rolled a nat 1. And then so I rolled on a table, and it determined that it landed 2 feet from me when I went to go throw it. And then they said, all right, let's find out how powerful it was. And I critical hitted the power. And so in one throw, I just mashed up this thing, threw it straight at my feet, and blew my character to smithereens. In the middle of a fight. Everyone else was fine, like even the bad guys.
Just
I had almost the opposite happen, where I was playing in one of Bruce's games. I don't remember the finer points of it, but I think I had the Horn of Elfland, which basically summons a whole load of like minions to help attack someone, and I rolled really high. It was something like a 26 or a 28 or something. So there was like 100 elf archers and 50 goblin catapulters and 25, basically like 200, 300 tiny little minions. We're all fighting this great big monster, and then you have to roll to see how many rounds it's for. And it was like a D8 or something, and it was for 1 round. And it turned out that this thing was basically immune to physical attacks as well. So I'm like, and all these people kind of running in and attacking him, and he's like, yeah.
I like to imagine they all just ran in and then they didn't actually attack. They just all stood around and went, oh. And just wandered off. Yeah.
I think they did like a total of like 2 points of damage or something on it because it was basically immune. I don't know. It was a while ago, pre-lockdown, obviously. And it was just so exciting. Oh my God, I've got this. Oh my God, there are all these things happening.
Okay, so if anybody wanted to buy DCC, obviously they need the core book, and as Phil had told me, there are a lot of versions of the core book around and out there.
There's a lot of versions of the covers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because after he said that, I went and did like a little search on printings, and I found all these different editions with different printings and covers and stuff like that.
The core book really hasn't changed at all. Some art changes in the middle, inside. You know, they might swap some pieces of art around, and they fix typos. But Joe Goodman is really one for saying the book is done. Anything else that comes out will be an addendum to the original core rulebook.
Okay.
The core rulebook is done. There's lots of different versions. Get the one that you like the most. I would say, unless you're in the US or there's some kind of sale on, be very careful about where you buy your Goodman Games stuff from. I love Goodman Games dearly. I think their products are amazing, but the shipping is challenging, and they've had trouble getting the price of shipping down internationally. So if you're in the UK, there are plenty of places that stock it. I think it comes in through Asmodee, to be honest with you. Likewise, I know that you're out in Sweden, Martin, and obviously you ordered from a Swedish distributor or a game store online, and that's the right way to go if you're not in the US. That's really important to acknowledge, because a core rulebook to the UK can cost $100 just to ship.
I got a soft cover. I didn't get a hard cover, and I think I spent like the equivalent of about 35 quid. It was like 400 crowns. So I think that's about 35 quid. But the reason I got that was just because I really liked the cover. So
yeah, you were saying that it's a similar style to the well, you got the Beastman cover, was it?
Yeah, it's the one that if you've got that adventure, if you put them side by side, if you put them side by side, it the picture runs across the two of them. Apparently,
it's the yellow Sailors on the Silas Sea.
Yeah, so I bought the adventure as well, of course.
I think you've done the right thing there, picking the right the cover that you want, though. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I think the thing is with buying a DC, like, to answer your question directly, if you had the time again, how would I buy the book? Like, I think I would say look around, find the cover you want, because the insides don't matter all that much. But you don't buy a book like this twice, well, unless you Phil, right? Like,
I don't.
Like,
I haven't bought a book like that once.
Like I'm.
But like,
I can see it on the shelf.
That's Aaron's. That's not mine.
It's that one. The I think this, like, I mean, I'm mad on the game. I love it. If I could only ever run one system again, it'd be DCC. But I ain't about to go and buy all the different covers and stuff, and I think most people aren't. So
this one is still in shrink wrap. We've had this for about 2 years.
Like Aaron says in the comments, leisure games are good for it. And to be honest, until Brexit and all of this VAT nonsense happened, I used to actually order when I couldn't get games in Sweden. I would order from Leisure Games, and they were really good shipping. I've ordered one game from them since for Cortex, and it cost a lot. But it came very nicely packaged, and no damage to it, and I couldn't get it in Sweden. So yes, Leisure Games is a good call.
The other purchase I'd make if you were looking to, depending on how you feel about the system, if you think from watching today, oh yeah, this is definitely the system that I want to run, and I want to run a longer campaign. I'm all out of focus now. Hang on. This Sullen Lands Adventure Omnibus. It's a Purple Sorcerer Games.
Hang on. There we go.
I'm still out of focus, sorry. But yeah, in any case, it's from Purple Sorcerer, and it's more or less all of the Purple Sorcerer adventures all put into one book. So there's a few funnels in there. There's some level 1s, level 2s. In fact, the adventure we'll be playing on Friday is in that book, and it's And unlike a lot of the other stuff that you can get for DCC, it is still in print and easy to get.
Yeah,
which is a big thing, because like the Lankmar box set can be difficult to get a hold of. Chain Coffin is basically Purple Planet is basically impossible to get. Chain Coffin is kind of the same.
Reissued as a book, so it's kind of possible again, but it's not really the same. The other thing I'd strongly recommend picking up, we've got 2 of these. I'll just go to the front page. It's called it says DCC RPG reference sheets. Actually, on Lulu, this is called the DCC RPG reference book, and it looks like this. And it's not particularly thick, and that's basically all of the tables.
Okay.
Well, not every single table in great detail. It doesn't have all the spells in it, but everything you might want, like crit tables, fumbles, equipment. And crits and fumbles happen a lot. When you roll a crit or a fumble, you then roll on the table, and that's modified by your luck, if I recall correctly. So the more lucky you are, the better your crit, for example.
Okay.
Basically, if you roll on a table in DCC, then you need to roll on a table for it, so you can roll on the table that you're going to roll the table on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get that?
Yes, that was perfectly clear. So is that Goodman Games then? Do they have their stuff on Lulu, so you can just get it?
This is independent, I think. I think it's with permission.
Okay.
No, it does not own or endorse this product.
Okay.
Goodman Games actually are really good about handing out their license, though. They're really into supporting third-party publishers and stuff like that. You do need to get in touch with them and be like, hey, listen, I want to do something. But they hand out those little shields that you can put in the corner, like candy. They're really good like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, any advice for Friday?
Play your character like you stole it. And provided you don't die in the last 10 minutes of the adventure, don't worry about dying.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to dying.
Don't make your pre-gen a deep backstory.
No. I think it's very much OSR is maybe come with a few keywords and then find out who your character is through play is a good idea generally in OSR games. So
I mean, I usually struggle just to find the name for the character, to be honest with you. So that's always the mad panic I have, and then the rest just falls in. Gentlemen,
alliteration helps you immensely when it comes to coming up with names as well. I've played multiple iterations of Wally the Wizard.
Excellent.
Is he a little robot?
Keep that in mind.
Clears up the junk. Gentlemen, we're well over an hour. Hopefully that's given everyone actually a little bit of an understanding, a grasp, a little glimmer of knowledge about DCC RPG. It's a really good system. Goodman Games have got a channel on Twitch, Goodman Games Official on Twitch. There's a DCC RPG Rocks group on Facebook, which is amazing. They're at goodman-games.com if you want to look at their website. As I said earlier, be careful of the shipping if you're not in the US, but certainly you can have a look at all the products that are available and then, make a decision. I'd like to very quickly thank everyone that's watched us live. So Erin, Andy, Yoel, Jamie, thank you very much for tuning in. Zac, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us and helping to give us oversight. Martin, thank you very much for joining as well. Pleasure to see you as always. We've got a live stream on Friday. It's going to be at 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. US time, 9 p.m. CEST, Central European. It's going to be great fun. We're playing Crypt & Cadaver Canyon, which is from Purple Sorcerer. And I hope that some of you can join us, or if this is after the fact, please just head on over to that if you haven't seen it already, and let us know in the comments if you've played DCC before, which your favorite module is. If you've not played DCC before, let us know which your favorite OSR game is. Please like, please subscribe, and we will see you all very soon, hopefully.
I'd guarantee if you are going to watch on Friday, do not play the drinking game where you drink every time I kill a character. It's a public health warning.
This is very true. This is very true.
Am I allowed to do it if I'm playing?
Yes. Then it's obligatory.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Thanks very much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. And as always, hope your dice rolls are way better than mine. Take care, everyone. Ciao.